Portland, Oregon. My name is Andre Middleton, and I am here at Pioneer Courthouse Square. What? We can test. You want us to test? Because right now I can't hear myself over the speakers. Check, check, check. 1 2 1 2. Check, check, check. 1 2 1 2. Um, Good evening. My name is Andre Middleton, and I'm the Executive Director of Friends of Noise. And thank you for joining us here at the Rose City Rising Candlelight Vigil, the final of 10 vigils held across local parks here in Portland, Oregon for the last 10 days. But first, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. We present at this vigil acknowledge that we are guests on the traditional and unceded lands of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cathlamet, Cowlitz, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Capulia, Malala, and many other indigenous peoples. We extend a special welcome to all indigenous people taking part in this virtual platform and invite all of our guests who are watching to honor the indigenous peoples whose land we are all on today. I started these vigils as a way of honoring my Uncle Joseph and Aunt Iona, who passed away during the pandemic. At each of these vigils, I've been saying the names of other people who have been submitted to me by friends, family, and people that I know via social media. Quickly, this list grew every day. A new addition to this evening is that I've invited 4 members of our spiritual community to join me one by one to say a few words about grief, loss, love, and the eternal spirit. First up, we have Reverend Andrea Cano. Please join me on the stage, Andrea. One of the great things about these events, it's how I've been able to meet so many incredible people who or at least are willing to embark on the journey regarding grief and mourning. Andrea, please.
Thank you so much, Andre, for convening us and having such heart to remember all whom we have lost this last year. And thank you all for coming today. You know, years ago, I studied to become a hospital chaplain to offer spiritual care to patients, their families, and even hospital staff. And later, I joined my chaplain colleagues to accompany people as they said hello to new life and goodbye to loved ones as they were dying, and everything in between. Our empathy, our quiet presence, our faith understandings, our spiritual care, we were present in so many ways for such vulnerable moments. And now, with each moment of the seasons, the brightness of spring to the darkness of winter, I understand again and again that the element that binds many of us together in happiness and in sorrow is our spirituality. For spirituality is that aspect of humanity that refers to the way individuals seek and express meaning and purpose, and the way we experience our connectedness to the moment, to self, to others, to nature, to the significant, or to the sacred. And I'm going to read this very quickly in Spanish. La espiritualidad es el aspecto de la unidad que que se refiere a la forma en que las personas buscan y expresan el significado y propósito y la manera que experimentamos nuestro enlace o vínculo con el momento, a uno mismo, a los demás, a la naturaleza y a lo significativo o lo sagrado. So this good blessed Sunday, we are bound in our profound grief and sorrow of losing our loved ones to the pandemic, bound in our meaning making, and bound together as we embrace the ways of deep healing. And I understand your grief because I also lost family members to COVID at the end of last year. My 96-year-old father, Hilario Rivera, and 72-year-old sister, Rita Rivera. And even after 6 months of their passing, a memory, a photo, the aroma of their favorite foods, the music they liked, many things trigger tears and heartaches for me. And I know the same thing happens to you. So while I know that my prismatic grief will last a lifetime, there are 2 gifts of grace I received in my mourning this year. First, the opportunity of knowing and understanding my father and sister even more since their deaths, through countless conversations with my siblings, nieces and nephews, close friends who experienced my father and my sister in different ways. They knew other things about them, close up and far away, than I did. And second, the cards and the letters and the phone calls and the texts and the Facebook posts from people who never met or knew Hilario or Rita. Their expressions of deep sympathy and condolences for these crushing losses, prayers for me and my family's healing and strength, offers of support were deeply meaningful to me. And each of those sentiments came from a common experience of loss and pain. So it is what we do for one another. It is why we are all here today. We are sharing our hearts in myriad emotions and sentiments for our healing and our wholeness, for our common humanity, and for our beloved community. For we were all breathed into being, breathed into family, breathed into community by our God, the Creator, the Holy, the Sacred, the Pachamama, the Sophia, and the Science. And my prayer for us is that we continue to cherish and support one another this day and every day. Amen.
Thank you so much for those words of wisdom and care. Next up, we have Reverend Chris De La Cruz, Associate Pastor at Westminster Presbyterian Church. Thank you, Chris.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris De La Cruz, the pastor of Westminster Presbyterian Church and a member of the BIPOC Faith Council for Black Lives in the Pacific Northwest. It is a privilege to be able to speak in front of you all tonight as we honor those who have died and as we process a little bit of the trauma and grief we have all been going through. But in the brief time I have with you all, I want to talk about my mother. I am the proud son of Filipino immigrants. My mother, Angelina De La Cruz, has served in this country as a nurse in the intensive care unit for 30 plus years. Coming from a childhood where she begged for rice in her village in the Philippines, and with barely any wealth to claim for her own, my mom took the plunge that every immigrant knows well and gave her sweat and tears to making this country a better place. My mom is not new to being an essential worker. We, as a people, just haven't recognized for too long how essential these folks really are. As an ICU nurse, even before 2020, she impacted countless lives. But spring of last year, she experienced hell like nothing else. My mom is located in New Jersey, which at the beginning of the pandemic was second only to New York City as the COVID epicenter. My mom dreaded all the gear she had to put on. My mom would have to carry multiple dead bodies every night. My mom said the sounds of ventilators and equipment beeping and coughing, people and wheezing, these noises would haunt her dreams, meaning she could never escape the ICU, not even in her rest. For folks here today, are there essential workers here or family members here who know what I'm talking about? My mom and countless essential workers like her gave so much of themselves to serve this country. And yet, this past spring, in broad daylight down the sidewalks of the city, there was a Filipino-American woman going to church, someone who probably looked a little bit like my mom. That woman was kicked and stomped on the ground repeatedly while the attacker yelled, "You don't belong here." And then, reportedly, a store security guard closed the door and ignored the attack. All because some people got in their heads that Asians were somehow responsible for COVID-19. Meanwhile, Asian Americans like my mother have been on the front lines, fighting this virus just like the rest of us. And so, on this clear evening, over a year after the pandemic first hit our shores, as we grieve what we need to grieve, as well as look toward the new morning, I wonder what America we will choose to be. You see, despite it all, my mom, Angelina de la Cruz, still believes in the hope of America. She told me after the January 6th Capitol attack, "How could anyone do this to the Capitol? I, as an immigrant, would never take this country for granted and defecate it." My mother, after all, still believes in the promise of this country. My mother still believes that she belongs here. And so tonight my hope, dare I say my prayer, is that we together would live up to her faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend De La Cruz. A powerful message, so needed in a time that we're living in now. Next, we have Reverend Jaramillo. Jaramillo. Thank you so much for that correct pronunciation. Member of the Ainsworth United Church of Christ. Thank you, Linda.
I also want to add my thanks for the honor of the invitation to be here with you. this afternoon, this evening, on such a beautiful, beautiful day that we're looking toward. Yes, my name is Linda Jaramillo, and I'm a member of Ainsworth United Church of Christ in Northeast Portland, and I serve on the board of directors of the Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, along with other interfaith connections that I'm very grateful. And I need to start by saying that I come from a long line of storytellers, and this long line of storytellers who really resided on these lands that we now know as the United States. These lands, 500 years. So when we hear a story about who doesn't belong here and who belongs here, it saddens my heart, because we cannot pretend that we didn't steal this land in the first place. We cannot pretend that that's not our case. And when we've gone through these pandemic times, and we've gone through what I call the huge crisis of the acknowledgement and the exposure of our racist past, we can't pretend that it has not affected all of us. And when I say that my gente, my people, have come from those places in the Southwest where we've been told we don't belong, only to be remembered that from our parents' stories that we've been there 500 years. That is what is on my heart. My mother is no longer with us in this world, but I worry about what she would be thinking now, what she would be saying now. So I give thanks for their lives, my parents' lives who worked on the farms day in and day out providing food to the community. I give thanks for that. En esta noche lo que quiero hacer es decidir para ustedes cómo tenemos nosotros que llegar acá. How can we arrive here in this place that we now know as the United States? Llegamos de espacios distintos y lugares distintos, todos buscando un espacio para la comunidad. We come here together and arrive here from our distinct places and those spaces to come together to a place that we could form community, a place, a space for our community to gather. Entonces, tenemos que tener el círculo más amplio. We have to have a larger circle that is welcoming and gathering of all the beings that live, not only the humans, but all of the beings that live in our midst. Un círculo que tenemos entonces para conectarnos, para alcanzar las conexiones que tenemos todos. And for us to reach that place of those connections that we must live in these places where all beings, all created in this great creation of the divine. Aquí estamos esta noche buscando apoyo, buscando fuerza, mirando a nuestra fe. Entonces la esperanza, el amor que estamos buscando. We come here this evening in spirit to make connection of our support needs and how we need to be with each other, how we need to seek each other's hope and encircle one another in faith and in love, no matter our faith, but be together in this sense of faith and love. That's our core being together. Entonces, llegamos esta noche, esta tarde, con ánima y fuerza para tener esta oportunidad de estar juntos. We come together this evening in this hope of this rising, the Friends of Noise rising, and the healing that needs to take place, because nosotros juntos y nosotras juntas podemos hacer otro mundo que es posible. Together we can make a difference, all of us together, because we can never lose sight that another world is possible, and it is ours to do. Tenemos que hacerlo in all the names of the holy divine that we come together, and we need to know that we are there. We are here. Estamos aquí esta noche because we believe that another world is indeed possible, and we cannot lose sight of that. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Linda. Just beautiful. And I'm just so honored to have all the speakers. And our final speaker tonight is Ariel Stone.
Love is eternal, so it is said. So does grief feel eternal. We mourn the tragedy of life cut off before its time. We mourn for ourselves left alone. Love is eternal, that may be, but life on this planet is not. We are left here aching for the empty chair that will not be filled except by memory. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we long to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they shall live in our memories. So long as we act on what we learned from them, they live in our acts. So long as we honor their lives by honoring all life, their lives mattered.
Hello. Oh, it's loud. Hi, my name is Mayanna. Thank you so much for so many beautiful words from all of you guys, and thank you, Andre, for having me here. I'm gonna lift that up just a little bit. All right, I've played a couple of other of these vigils this week, and like I said the other night, I lost a friend of mine a few years ago, and during that process of grief, music was really, really important for me and for a lot of other people impacted by that. And so this is just one of those songs that really helped me through it. So this is Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. The microphone is kind of sinking.
Could you fix the mic?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Is it?
Yeah. All right, this is Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. There's two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year, running over the same old ground. What have we found? The same old fears. Wish you were here. Thank you. Thank you, Andre.
Thank you, Mariana. And next up, we have some poetry by Brianna Renee.
Yeah, this is good. Thank you so much. Hi everybody, I'm Brianna Renee. I'm just going to do a quick poem that I wrote about grief because this year has been filled with loss and there's never really the right words to say, so I decided to do what I do best, and that's write poetry. So, the first memorial I ever been to was for a boy I never met. I still cried. I was so angry at myself for feeling sad. That sadness should have been reserved for those that knew him, those that loved him. I never even introduced myself, but he always smiled at me, until now. I never knew his name, until now. I hated not knowing if hearing of this death made me feel more sad or guilty for that. The second funeral I ever went to was for my grandma. I felt guilty for this one. This one was for me. I sat in the family-only section and listened to my loved ones I hadn't seen in years pour their heart out about a woman I barely knew, but I wish that I did. I sat with this anxiety that this service will one day be for us all. Why is it at my grandma's funeral I realize all the things that make this wicked world worth living will one day come to an end? I asked my grandpa, how on earth do you smile on the day that you bury your wife? She was your everything. I asked my grandpa, how are you even able to walk? He said, baby, because she taught me. I don't need her body to be here to show me how to laugh. You spend enough time with someone and their laugh becomes yours. Through laughing, baby girl, her legacy lives on. You have to realize there are plans for everyone you love that has absolutely nothing to do with you. Nothing in this temporary world will ever belong to you. We just hold on to the time we were blessed to experience them, for a moment or for a lifetime. So yes, I will mourn because a physical bond has come to an end, but we should rejoice at the fact that we were even blessed enough to know them. So I cry because I miss them, but not because they are gone. Because through remembrance of them and the things that they taught us is how their life lives on. Death is not the end, but simply a passing of the baton. So for the ones that we've lost, a moment of silence. May your bodies rest in peace. May your souls rise above. And may we live our life in dedication that this world will continue to feel the impact of your love. Thank you, everyone.
For the last 10 days, I've been visiting local parks in the Portland metro area and reading the names of people who have passed away within the time span of the pandemic. These names were shared with me by their loved ones who are my friends, some are family members, some are acquaintances, but this means that all the names that I read are 1 degree separated from me. And while I may not know them as individuals, I know and share the heartache of the sharer of those names. The hardest part for me was the inability to say goodbye through the ritual of a funeral or a wake or a repast. I struggled with how to let my community and the universe know of the impact that that had on me. So I decided to set up a PA system in local parks and to say their names out into the universe so that the trees, the wind, the very earth itself would know that those people were missed, that they were loved. And so here on the final night of these Rose City Rising Vigils, I'm going to read the list that was updated mere minutes ago. Joseph Middleton. Iona Mosley. Shahid Hamid. Clark Nichols. Dave Bussacker. Charmaine Densler. Carol Fernandez. Michael Elder. Jill Packer. William Packer. Sheldon Schlossman. Jomo Greenidge. Angelina McIntyre. Hosea Corliss. Kim Peoples. Sharon Johnson. Mike Mitchell. Martin Evans. Jason Collins. Leo Hernandez. Topaz Crawford. Jason Gilliland. Tony Michael Lamb. Rob Campbell. Leotha Evans. Danae Williams. Sarah Clark. Ben Hall. Michael Moon Tucker. Gabrielle Lopez Rico. Ross McKean. Michael Watts. Heidi Schmaltz. Estella Casas. Edgar Francisco. Cynthia Harris. Austin Evan. Dale Morris. Tommy Posada. William Fagley. Rabisa Koya. Bobby Smith. Seth Westerhouse, Lee, Archie Badger Patterson, Uhuru Cruz, Cameron Lauren, Great Aunt Rose, Virginia Grogan, James McGrath, Geneva Lee Brockman, Faith Maxwell, Andrew Ayala, Jody Nolte, Alice Penny, Dan Moe, Paul Rains, Ernie Hayes, Gary Cooper, Paul Hisdahl, Robbie Williams, Sam Gruber, Jeff Riegelman, Heath Bloodgood, Anita Archuleta, Willie Wiggins, Noah Terry, Ari Grossman, Azamar Glenn, Richard Leff, Trevor Birdsong, Lita Daiguanco, Jennifer Zahn, Terry Paget, Dee Dee Runkle, Eloise Marie Dougherty, Ricardo Telles, Charlie Kelly, Morgan Evans, Connie Hines, Alfie Lyons, Carlos Duran, Deborah Swartz. Typhoon Olapai, Christopher Martin, Mira, Erwin Lambrento, Jameer Malik Brown, Malathi Sridhar, Laxman Reddy, Jer Wysong, Sundarhalal Banagunjajai, Cameron Norris, Mary Ellen Somerville, Auntie Gwen, Cyan Day Paglia, John Hullop, Dave Caro, Melissa Dolanuk, Eileen Sloan, Allison Kendall Stewart, Auntie Sharon, Catherine Chavez, Paris Green, Amanda Martinez, Timothy John Hook, Colin Fontes, Ross Starkey, Dan Winter, Adam Papadimao, Alfredo Climaco, Sophie Gwen Williams, Mr. Markowitz, Anthony Tolliver, Eric Friedman, Tio Hector Kameen, Daniel Apodaca, Stephanie DeCamp, Mo Love, Chris Hartman, Victoria Grace, Mary Segura, James Collins, Ron Burns, Kirk Stoller, Betty Graham, Jamal Sutherland, Hartmut Schaefer, Patricia Louise Thayer, Doug Hall, Hal Cohen, Ruben Gutoff, Robert Douglas Delgado, Brian Crosby Payne, Margie Holmes, Uncle Alvin, George Floyd, Betty Dodson, Brianna Taylor, Ahmed Aubrey, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Mackay Bryant, Craig Stanley, Sergio Hunt Jr., Kevin Patterson, Molly Burgett, Chris Sibman, Tom Barwick, Frank Laviere, Dolores Escobedo, Kurt Hayashi, Laura Edith Williams. I want to thank the many, many, many people who decided to join this effort by sharing the names of their precious loved ones with me. I couldn't have done this without them. I want to thank the crew, the volunteers, the friends and loved ones who supported me in this effort for the last couple of weeks. And I want to thank everybody and anybody who can find the space to share their grief. The pandemic has done such an incredible job of isolating us, and despite the fact that death in some fashion will touch us all, we've been conditioned to do a pretty good job of keeping it at bay. So I hope that this can be a call to embrace the passing of our loved ones on a national level. I hope that through the call for enough people that perhaps we can make the Sunday before Memorial Day a day to remember and memorialize us all, especially coming after this pandemic. I think something like that would be a good idea. Thank you for being a part of this evening, to those who are here present at the square. Like I said, someone gave me a name just tonight, and I want to thank those who walked up to me in person at the many parks to give me a name to share. It's been an honor to do so, and thank you for being a part of this. Good night, goodwill, and best wishes.